One of the things that I wanted to ask you is, you're an engineer, and that's what you're doing professionally. You are, and that's guaranteed money. What got into your head to start doing photography?
Well, I finished. I mean, as it turns out, when I left Egypt, things were slowing down there as well, and the kids were back in Canada. So we decided, well, we think we're in a good enough spot to go back and retire from the oil sector. And we had some plans, some significant plans that were unfortunately changed, affected by personal situation, which I won't get into, but it changed a lot of things. So then it was, right, well, I've got a little more time on my hand in this regard, time I hadn't planned for, so what do I want to do? And I mentioned earlier, I said, I got to keep going, I got to keep doing something. Mm-hmm. So I always had this bug in the back of my mind to learn more about photography. Now, certainly all those years with the kids and traveling, I mean, we're taking pictures, but I was put it on the little green dot and just snap the camera, right? Mm-hmm. And I also wonder why some pictures were clear and others were blurry.
Right. That happens, doesn't it?
Because you don't know what you're doing wrong, right? So, but once I had this time on my hands, that's when I said, you only live once. Mm-hmm. It's a short ride. Make best use of it. So let's spend some time learning a little bit more about photography. And so that's what I decided to do.
That's amazing, because photography itself, what I really like, when I was doing some research, I came across your page. I'm like, this is amazing. This is like a different. This is more art. There's so much work goes into that. People don't understand. So you do, but that's not one of the type of photography you do. You also do everything.
Yeah, well, I think which is true of most photographers. When you begin, they talk about your niche. We're
and I was going to bring that up.
And I think it's taken me now a good 3-4 years to kind of start figuring out where my niche will be.
Wow.
And that's fine. Again, as part of this, for me, it's I think what's not gotten away, because I don't need to be apologetic for it, but I do like to shoot a lot of different types of photography, and part of that is true for any photographer starting. It's just, you're going to shoot a lot.
Yeah, it's just secondary. You don't even think about it,
and because you're experimenting, you're trying to learn different techniques, and so maybe today it's street photography, tomorrow it's landscape, and then it's portraiture of your best friend or whatever. So you do those kinds of things until you kind of start getting attractive to one genre more so than the others. Mm-hmm. And that was what was happening to me. Pretty much, it was easy enough to start in landscape, right? We got the big, beautiful country out here. Just get out of the city, and it's very easy to be attracted to the mountains because they're grandiose and they make for some awesome images. But I felt more challenged to go into the prairies, and maybe it's because I'm a prairie boy from Saskatchewan. And I said, there is beauty in the prairies if people will just stop and look. There's tremendous beauty out there, and so that's where I started off, and then I got interested with better portraits, the family and whatnot. So that kind of came into the mix, and then again now this it's not boredom, but this desire to do more with it. Mm-hmm. It seemed to be a natural to kind of morph, to take my photography further into the area of surrealism to digital photo artistry. Mm-hmm. And so I started, exploring that area, and that was attractive because I thought, well, it's something till the day your last breath, if you will. There's nothing stopping you from using your own imagery or stock and creating art. Mm-hmm. Using the likes, the Photoshops of the world, the digital environment. You can do that to your dying breath, right? And at the same time, keeping this head engaged, which was important to me.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so that's kind of the story. Photography, but that now has it's still there. I love to shoot, but I also love to turn that into art, and that's my intent. I'm not happy with just a picture. Anybody can take a picture. If you set up a camera, you can put a monkey on the end of it and press the button. That's a picture, right?
Yeah.
But I think people deserve more than that. And if you want to stand out, you've got to take it up a notch. You got to go up. And I really think that's where the world is going today, with so much digital imagery being uploaded every. We've heard the numbers from trillions of photos every year, right? Mm-hmm. From now, everyone's got an eye.
It's more now too.
A mobile phone on their, a phone on their cell and whatnot. But they're all, and it's easy enough to put the filters on that are provided by the likes of Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot. But that doesn't make you the artist, right?
No.
And so, how do you stand out, and how do you perceive yourself as an artist? Well, you've got to spend some time and take it the next step and try to create something that is unique, something that I think that I would be happy to hang on my wall, and that I would be hope that you'd be happy to hang on your wall, for example.
And what you create,
or use in your business.
Absolutely.
There's certain images that can help people's business excel. Because everybody's in competition, right? Mm-hmm. No matter what you're doing, there's others out there doing the same thing. So how do you make yourself unique? How do you, attractive? Stopping the scroll is the new buzz term, right? Mm-hmm. You're posting to Instagram, people will just flip through that with their thumb because they all kind of look the same until, for those images they stop on, why do they stop? Because there's something different, right?
There's something different.
It's unique, and so that's what I strive for, is trying to find a unique image. Like I said, ideally to have printed. I don't think people print enough of, if you are a photographer, if you're creating art, I think people have forgotten because anything that sits in the digital world on your hard drive never gets seen again.
It's not the same. It's not the same thing.
So why'd you do it? It's sitting there.
But also
forgotten.
And I just want to go back, touch up on that a little bit, is that you are actually, I was explaining to you prior to the camera being turned on, that I don't do much photography anymore. Because personally, number one, I'm bored. Number two, I know that I can do so much more with it. So it's this idea of coming up with a unique idea. I'm not really interested in shooting, photographing images of a beautiful woman or, nice looking gentleman in a suit and whatever.
Right.
I wanted to have something, a reason. Why is it that, like you explained, why people scrolling through thousands of pictures every day, why should they stop on that image? So you are doing exactly the things that have been running through my mind.
Well, and that's the beauty of digital artistry, photo manipulation. At the end of the day, any good photo begins with a story. Mm-hmm. It has to have a story. So here's an example. There's a social injustice happening here in Calgary, for example, or let's just use that as an example, and it's got your attention. Mm-hmm. So you might think, right? Well, what are the key elements of that? Think about that. Well, so what does that look like? And pick your camera up, go out and shoot the elements that are pertinent to that story, bring that back home, and then combine those in a unique piece of art or imagery that is your work, but telling your story, the story you want told on this particular social injustice, if that's the storyline.
Right.
Whatever it might be. I was just some great work. Josh Rossi is recognized as one of the top digital artists in the world. I've got some certification under his program. He's an American currently living in Puerto Rico, and he has done some amazing work. And one of his most recent projects is to gather about 15 kids who've all been bullied, and he's brought them into the studio. And he's created kind of like their own Avengers series.
Oh, that's fun.
Oh, yeah. So
that's a lot of fun.
One of the kids is Hulk Hogan, not Hulk Hogan, the Hulk, rather.
Right.
And all those characters from the Avengers, and it's all the kids, right? And then he shoots them individually, puts it into this composite, And it's remarkable, right? And I don't know where that's going, where the funds are going. I presume it's all tied to awareness.
That organization, yeah.
And to stop all the bullying that's going on in our schools and online and stuff like that. So, here's a photographer who's now taken his work, not only his ability to shoot the photograph, because as you mentioned, at the end of the day, I mean, the shot is pretty simple. It's a couple key lights, fill light, boom, click. Yes, that's it. Costume.
Yeah.
But that's just to get the person right. Now we take it and put it into a piece of work that's totally unique. It would be definitely an eye stopper.
Absolutely.
And that's his whole intent, right? To get people to stop, take notice on this anti-bullying campaign, right? So I think, to me, that's where it's going to go. And Josh would tell you the same thing. If you're not doing composites, you're falling behind in today's world. And you can see it. If you most of this imagery we see on the buses of Calgary and on different places in town, a lot of that is composite work.
Yeah, it's composition. Yeah,
it's not just one single image. It's thought out. Maybe a number of images may have been shot in the studio or somewhere on location, brought together to create the imagery that company or whoever is paying for it wanted, and it's going to be different and unique, and it'll catch your eye, right? And so I think that's where it's going. If you're not doing composites, you're falling behind.
I agree, 100%. I like there's a couple of things that you said. You mentioned this idea of being bored, and that forces you into this space where it's taking you about 3 to 4 years now to really start to find your voice. Do you feel like with the digital artistry, you found your voice?
Yeah. That's ultimately, I probably didn't finish that off. The camera will be with me always. It's in my car outside right now. I always travel with it because I find I can shoot images just for the apparent beauty in the scene, or I can be very specific and be shooting elements, thinking of how I can use that in photo artistry or photo manipulation. So I probably need to explain a little bit for those that might not be aware. There's kind of stages from just a straight up photo to one where photo manipulation, where you've manipulated a couple things in the photo or added something in, to all out digital artistry. And I belong to a group like that, which is very much like paintings. A lot of it's digital artistry. I mean, it's art.
I love it.
All digital.
I've seen it,
and it can be very unique, right? So hence there's a spectrum there you can play in. That again is, where do you want to fall in on that spectrum? I enjoy the digital artistry, and I've got some colleagues from around the world, a group I belong in, that do some wonderful, magical stuff, stuff that you would hang on your wall, a book cover, if you're an author or something like that, something quite unique, depending on the story. I probably am leaning more towards more of the commercial side, where it's not so artsy, if that's the right word, but more towards digial surrealism.
So to be clean, but yet
a little cleaner look,
right.
Yeah. But it's still a very, where there's elements in the photo that are juxtaposition that are just, those you wouldn't normally see those together, right? And they're together to tell you a story, The little girl feeding a bouquet of flowers to an elephant in a garden, is a silly little example.
Right,
Yes. You wouldn't see that sort of thing, or leaning your head on a tiger's head, and having a little nap. Those kinds of things can be very powerful, very clean. But there are some great digital artists around the world. There's a gentleman in Holland, Samling, that does things with his son. His son is his model, and two of them actually. He'll photograph himself as well, and they build some very unique scenes. kids having fun, riding on the wing of an airplane, as with planes. Just fun stuff, and hence a lot of that work is very successful in the commercial world.
Wow,
it was advertisers again, because they got to get somebody's attention, right? And how do you get somebody's attention?
That would
you got to have a unique imagery, right?
How long? I've done a little bit of it. I'm not super good.
Yeah.
But how long does it take per project? I know you're laughing.
Per project, yeah. It's, how long is a piece of string? It depends on what I'm doing. It can be maybe a couple hours, and it can be over the course of 2-3 days. Now that's not solid work, but just spreading it out over 2-3 days, where you might get a couple hours in, and then give it a break, which is often a good idea anyhow. Leave it for a while,
right?
Come back with fresh eyes, and you'll see things that have got to be changed. That's probably good for any piece of art, really. Any artist will tell you that. Yeah. It's just, you get it to a point you think you're done, just leave it overnight and come back in the morning, and invariably you'll find, because what happens is we get so engaged and you start really believing in everything you're doing is right.
Right.
When it's not, right? There's a better way.
No, it's true. You sleep over and wake up and you're like, I don't like it. And that's the killer right there. That's because now you're like, I just lost all that time.
Yeah.
But
well, you lose it, but you've learned.
You've learned, and you do it better the next time.
Right. That's part of the learning process.
Yeah.
If we could get everything right the first time, then.
Absolutely. This conversation. So, do you have this conversation? We're almost out of time here, and I realized I haven't even.
Give me the 10 speed questions quick.
All right, right, exactly. We need to do like a speedy version here. First of all, what is this digital artistry? For people that may not know, just kind of, break it to them.
Simply put, it's bringing in elements or parts of an element or just textures or all into a composition to ultimately create a piece of art.
That's fantastic. So here's the next question. How important is it for artists to express their freedom in their art and creativity without having to sacrifice anything?
Well, I think that ultimately that's what art is. To the artist, it's their outlet. Some people have asked me, "Well, you're an engineer. What the hell? What are you doing, messing around with photo artistry and this sort of thing?" Right? It seems like diametrically opposed things. And my little joke is, well, the engineering, tapped one side of the brain, and the other side of the brain was screaming out, and so I've gotten into photography and art to balance it off.
To balance, I like that. Do you have a favorite work?
A favorite piece that I've created?
A favorite piece that you've created?
Probably, 2 or 3. Yeah.
You have 2 or 3, but you have to pick like one favorite.
There's maybe. It's difficult. It would be tough to pick one. I think 2 or 3, but they would look somewhat similar. Invariably, what they were was relatively simple, with a good story. I think that's the issue. Where I probably got the story right, or the presentation of the story. The message presented in the way I wanted it presented.
That's amazing. Another question. What was the hardest discipline that you had to acquire in order to become a successful photographer?
A successful photographer, the discipline or the knowledge? What was it?
Yeah, discipline.
Well, I think the discipline there is just to go out and shoot. I mean, photography is all about, you've heard the term, you got to shoot 10,000 photos before you get your first good one. Mm-hmm. All that means is you got to go out and practice and practice and practice, and that continues. I don't really, even the greatest photographers in the world will still be out there trying different things. So it's continually shooting. You don't necessarily have to take everything and edit it, but just continually shoot to develop your eye. Often, the camera is ultimately a pretty dumb piece of equipment. the magic is in your eyes and what you see, and then can you turn that in? Can you help the camera see the same thing? So the discipline there is just keep getting out and shooting as far as photography is, and learning. I mean, I think often I think the biggest step in terms of photography is to expand your photography, to start looking at off-camera lighting and some, these sorts of things. A lot of people say, well, I'm a natural light photographer. Well, they're saying that for one of either two reasons. One, off-camera lighting scares them. They don't want to learn.
Gotcha.
Or they just don't want to be bothered with it.
That's true. Laziness also plays a part.
So the problem with that, the issue with that, is that you've really start putting limits on yourself.
Absolutely.
And yes, newer cameras allow to go to higher ISO and still maintain some good quality plays into their game. Mm-hmm. Not their game. For those who elect not to use off-camera flash. So now that it opens up the window of opportunity, you can shoot into lower light, right? Mm-hmm. But I've seen too many examples where even at that, you're still missing an opportunity to tell a much stronger story. Mm-hmm. If you would just introduce, and it doesn't have to be complex lighting. It can be one single strobe. It can be a little flash. It can be a small LED light panel. Mm-hmm. Magic happens, right? And all of a sudden now your window of opportunity for what you can shoot just opens up.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a discipline. Educate yourself a little more. Push the envelopes and get out there and keep shooting from the photography side.
I love those advice so much. So let's dabble into the new age. These are questions for the new age.
Yep.
Photography has changed.
Yep.
Now, I read something on your website that when you were a little boy, you would see, I think there was a family member of yours who probably did like some type of photography, you will go into the barns and kind of watch.
Well, it was this magic place, right? He would go in there and come out with these pictures. He'd take his camera and come out with these
come out with a picture,
prints.
and you're thinking like, what is going on?
And you couldn't go in there when he was in there working, right?
Right, and that prompted this question actually, because the world is changing. We're in like gimme, tick, 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 fast, which is what the digital photography is today. Yeah. As someone who grew up on film, did you? Is that where you grew up or no?
Well, certainly I was shooting film early days, but I wouldn't call myself a photographer then. I mean, that was just dad shooting photos of the family, right?
Right, okay.
When I wanted to get serious about photography, we had already morphed into the digital environment.
Okay, so that would be much recent. The question there that I wanted to ask was like, do you think that at some point we will go back to films?
From an artistic standpoint, yeah. As a matter of fact, I know some people now that have all of a sudden picked up a film camera. Again, call it boredom, call it uniqueness, call it a new challenge. They've gone back to film, right?
Are these people that were on digital?
Yeah, and they're still likely still shooting digital, but they're going back to film more from an art. I would call it, my view is more of an artistic form, right? Mm-hmm. But because commercial work, digital's here. The demands on so many of the genres. If you're a sports photographer shooting the Olympics, the expectation is you take the shot and immediately it's gone to headquarters and in press, right? And you can't do that with film. Digital is the way to go. So in terms of turnaround time, speed, most of these genres, the digital.
What is the future of photography in your opinion?
We talked about the composites. I think it's this business of what do we got to do to get people's attention, so that they stop and spend more than a millisecond observing your work, right? And whether you're an artist, a professional photographer shooting, whether it's portraits or whatnot, those have got to be a little different. If you're into many of the genres, you got to find a little different twist there to maintain people's attention or to get people's attention, to be different.
Okay. Can you make money Can you make a living? Can you make a living on photography in the city?
The answer is yes. The question is how, is where people struggle with. I mean, 'cause there are people making good money. Good photography is good photography. Mediocre photography, if that's the problem. If you are in the mediocre pool, then no, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get to that upper echelon where these guys are making six figures and more? That's the trick. And there's many prongs to that fork. It's from marketing to yes, the quality of your work, to awareness, to all. And it's not about pricing cheap. That's not the way to win the market. But you got to move yourself. You got to find a way to move yourself away from being mediocre to being the person that people think about and want to come for their imagery.
When it comes to it.
Yeah.
I love that answer.
There's still money out there. People are spending. Those with money still have money. I know the last few months there's a lot of photographers that are struggling. It's difficult because if you are not perceived to be someone outside of that mediocre pool,
mm-hmm. you're not going to make it. And I think this time really sort of teaches you that. It's like, maybe I am doing something. I need to reeserious whatever the heck it is I'm doing.
Yeah,
so I can come back stronger and,
And there's many serious photographers are doing just that. They use this break, if you will, to slow down, to reevaluate how they do things,
mm-hmm.
How they price their work, what their value is, and try to be ready to move forward now in a better state of health.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not business-wise.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. I already asked this question, so I'm not even... Okay, so real quick, let's go into mentorship. Did you have a mentor when you were growing up?
In terms of photography?
In terms of photography.
No. When I started, I did contract a gentleman, a very decorated photographer here in the city. We had an agreement, some value out of that. I ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think he and I were a good fit.
Got it.
For where I wanted to go, where he was coming from. So did I contract a mentor? Yes. Now, saying that, as a member of the Professional Photographers of Canada, there's a mentorship program within PPOC that is available at no cost, right? So it's a senior member trying to help a junior. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't participated in that yet. I'm probably at a point now, and some of what I do is I could be maybe a mentor to others.
Oh, absolutely.
In terms from the artist side.
You can start with me.
I'd be happy to do that.
You can start with me. We can do it like that.
Well, and here's the thing, a lot of that, I've been doing a little bit of that, and in today's virtual world,
mm-hmm.
That can be done online. With one of the platforms, I had a session here the other night with a gentleman,
mm-hmm.
with another photographer who's just learning
mm-hmm.
Photoshop and wanting to do more
mm-hmm.
with his photography, and so we spent a couple hours and we agreed to do that maybe. And he's a closer friend, so for me it's also I'm using it as a learning curve for myself.
Absolutely.
On how do I want to approach this. But of course, right away he says, "Well, Rick, why don't you start teaching this to others?" And I certainly could. I mean, where I've taken my knowledge in Photoshop, and there's a lot of people struggling out there. So it's a decision I've got to make.
I think we need
to do it is one thing, and the want to do it is another. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we definitely need to talk more after this. But this is so clearly you're thinking about mentoring or the mentorship. So clearly, do you see an importance? Is it important to have a mentor?
Yeah, yes.
What is the best way to go about acquiring a mentorship?
Well, I mentioned a couple of ways that I know of. Is one is you go out and buy it, pay for it. Find a photographer that you admire their style. You think you're close. You get same, personalities will mesh. A lot of photographers provide mentorship programs, right? But before you jump right into one, I would do a little homework first. Talk to them. Make sure you're a good fit. My scenario wasn't the best. Could have been stronger. So I would tell anybody that's looking at it, just slow down and actually do a little research on them and talk to them and make sure you're a fit before you commit. The other is through, if you're a member of PPOC, or there's mentorship, again, available at no cost. But again, there too, it's important that you mesh.
That's awesome.
By the way, Rico, of course, what the mentorship program does at the end of the day, if you have somebody, it just accelerates you on your learning curve.
Oh, right? Absolutely, yes.
I mean, that's why you do it. It's just to accelerate your learning curve.
You're absolutely right, because until you get in that process, it's almost like going to school. Sometimes you don't necessarily go there because when you come out you're going to find a job, but the connection that you make in that facility, it opens different doors. You're able to meet different.
Well, networking, you're absolutely right. That's another strong suit. That's something I need to do more of. Is networking. So whether it's through mentorship or just in general, just meetup groups or other symposiums or conferences or whatnot, where photographers and digital artists are meeting. That's a place you probably should get to and just take some samples of your work along, because there's often others there that are looking for something unique.
Now, would you print it and take it with you, or would you just leave it on a digital platform?
It's
probably better to print it.
What I would do, many people would just, for a while, everybody left print and went to like an iPad or something, right? And well, here's my work.
And print has gotten expensive too. That's
well, print actually, no, not the cost of the printed paper is not that much. But and so a lot of people are going then again, because this got saturated, if you will. How do I be different? Well, people are now all of a sudden. They may still have this, but they also bring along a portfolio, a printed portfolio, because there is something magic when you can actually show your work on paper to another person at the other side of the table versus this digital thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody's so used to looking at digital, right?
Yes.
But now all of a sudden there's something tangible, right? You have to slow down a little bit, maybe to look at it, which is to your advantage, right? Yeah. Now. So I'd probably say have both. It's interesting you asked that question. Is on the way here today, Rico, I was thinking, I don't have my printed portfolio, and I was thinking about that on the way here. I need to start doing that and carry it with me.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something now. A few years ago, I was like, because Canon came out with the Canon 100 series printer.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I can get one of these, and it seemed pretty easy to use. And then I got one, and the papers that it came with, the first time I printed my work, I got goosebumps. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's my work.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened. Because with printers, it's all these things. I don't know what's going on, but since then I haven't been able to print anything solid out of it. It's probably due to the fact that I'm not a printer guy. I don't really know what I'm doing with this thing, and I spend hours with them trying to
there's
work
a couple
it out.
of things that could come up. One is just your print color management. Something may have changed between your laptop or your computer and your printer. So what you're seeing on your laptop is not.
Definitely not what I'm seeing. I've even gone and bought the whole
So that's what's called
thing.
ICC. That's called color management, and there's ways to do that. Because certainly if you are printing your own work like that, then you have to pay attention to color management and the profiles. Well, at the end of the day, these profiles, you're working on your laptop, and it's got colors represented. Of course, you want to get it to the printer the same way, but that's two different platforms, and they have to be able to converse. So these profiles say, right, well, this red over here, it's got to look like this over here to give you the same perceived color when viewing it. So I don't want to get too technical on that, but that could be where you broke down.
That's definitely where something went wrong there, Rick, and I can explain it.
You know, those are great printers. I know people have got them. I don't have one. I still don't do enough print of my own printing, but you got to be doing a significant amount of your own printing to justify, because ultimately those cartridges sit there for too long.
I'm thinking about selling it now and just getting rid of it because
because if you're not using it, then the cost of the ink, and if it's sitting there, the ink's drying out, and now you got other issues.
Absolutely.
If you're not at a point where you're really printing a lot of work, I'd probably wait and then
absolutely
until the point.
Absolutely, that makes sense. So, what is next for Rick?
More art.
More art. I like that.
More high-paying jobs. more. No, yeah. We'll see. You know, it's like anything. You know, you got to get yourself out there, and once you start getting yourself out there, this is another example.
Yeah.
You know, I've got another feature coming up in PPOC's Gallery magazine. It comes out in December. There's an article on my digital illustration in that magazine. I'm doing the podcast with you now, Rico. There was another feature through an outfit in North Carolina through the Awake Group. That was more on the digital artistry. So it's awareness, it's exposure. Word of mouth. I still do a fair amount of corporate headshots here, but I just did a good-sized project with one of the wealth management companies here in town. But we took it one step further and created their group shots. Everyone was shot individually, safely during these times. But then the beauty of Composite is I could bring them into a group shot, a very unique kind of business-oriented group shot, and. Of course, the advantage of that is if someone leaves the team, you remove them from the group. You don't have to shoot everybody. If you add somebody to your team, you just shoot the one person.
You just shoot that one guy and replace him.
And bring him back in. Yeah. So little things like that, you know. There again is the use of composite work to facilitate group shots. And here we are in a pandemic. And if you can get it, safely done, individual, and we did that, with masks, one at a time.
Yeah.
It's only myself and the other person in the room. They're, the way I shoot, they're about 15 feet away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I take it all home and put it all together in a composite group shot, and it looks like everybody was in the same group. And of course, they weren't.
That's amazing.
There wasn't physically enough room. There was one team was 8 people in that room we were using. You wouldn't do. I mean, you could in a way that wouldn't be it'd be more like a family portrait rather than the concept we wanted. So the composites let you do that sort of thing.
That's beautiful. And is there?
Plus, you get everybody smiling the right way, right? You pick the right way.
That's true, right? And then you don't have to deal with who closed their eyes and who smile halfway. Everybody's just one-on-one.
Looking their best,
You got to smile, man. It's your turn. I'll go first and show you how it's done. Then you can do it next. Is there anything that you would like to add to this interview? Something I perhaps left out or even forgot to mention?
I don't know. We covered quite a bit of ground, Rico. I quite appreciate the opportunity. It's been fun. At the end of the day, it's art. I think the biggest message I would give is for those that are either photographers alone or photography going into digital artistry and whatnot is get out there and shoot, get out there and create something that's unique and artful. That makes you stand out from the rest. I think that's the biggest challenge for all of us, and I think that's the biggest thing going forward. Is again when you get trillions of images hitting Instagram and Facebook daily, how are you going to be different? Mm-hmm. Find a way, make yourself a respected, not professional, but someone knowledgeable in that area, right? Mm-hmm. Of that genre or that style, where people will come to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, time for my curveball question.
Okay.
I left this one for last. Now, you are a man who has lived in Africa and been, and you lived in Africa, you live on the land, you're seeing the people and everything. What is your position now? What is your position on Black Lives Matters?
I think it all relates to what I said earlier. It's all about respect. I fully support. There's no reason for us to. Someone said it the other day. We've somehow, unfortunately, we've put ourselves into these buckets where, well, you're Caucasian, you're Black, you're Native American, you're Caucasian. All these buckets, right? And then we treat ourselves differently because we put these different terms on different races, right? Mm-hmm. When at the end of the day, we're all the human race.
Right.
And if anything, this pandemic has proven that, right? The pandemic doesn't give a hoot about my religion, my skin tone, where I'm from. It doesn't matter. And I think to me that's a reminder of how we all need to just behave. And I was fortunate to be accepted in places like Egypt, right, where I was a minority, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. I'm this Canadian Caucasian living in the suburbs of Cairo. But I respected people respected me. I loved it. I wish I was back there today. I mean, we truly fell in love with the place, and how did it happen? It's just by treating everyone the same way, fairly. And so, if that's what Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, and I think we can find our way through all of that is if people just start treating the other person like their brother, Mm-hmm. If we were attacked by aliens from outer space, right?
We'll all gear up to go fight.
Yeah, we'd be pulling together, wouldn't we?
Right, yeah. It's happening all the time.
And the pandemic
think about
is
all the wars, everything, yeah.
The pandemic is teaching us that. That's kind of an attack from a third party, if you will, that's attacking all.
Yeah.
But you can watch it on TV. There's different parts of the world. People are ingrained in their belief systems that they just cannot get beyond, call it racism or mistreating others. I mean, it's just so ingrained. I don't know how.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it right, of course, but I think we must recognize, and it will take us a little longer in certain parts of the country, of the world, to get through this than in others.
Ric, I want to thank you. Tell the people where they can find you. And you can look in that camera.
Well, where can you find me? Probably the easiest is on Instagram, @images_by_Ric, separated by periods. On Facebook, Ric Matkowski Photography. And then on my website, ricmatkowskiphotography.smugmug.com. I will tell you, I'm not proud of that website right now. I need a new one. And so but it does represent some of my work. So, that's where you can find me. So, thanks, Rico. It was a lot of fun today, man.
No, absolutely. And Ric, we're leaving out an entire segment here, but I think at this point we've...
Well, do you want me back?
I got to have you back so we can get into that segment. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to this episode on 18th Avenue Podcast. I have been here hanging out with my brother, Ric Matkowski. Yes! I got it. Oh, damn. All right, thank you all. We out. Peace. Okay.